two different ways to approach these texts that we're getting into. Remember, joining this group, you're joining Dzogchen. It's Ati Yoga, the ninth yana. It's the highest, yet the most simple meditation practice. So, if you're joining, you should know what awareness and the nature of mind is, because you can process these texts intellectually, um, but it's not as fun as resting in awareness and hearing the words. So, are there any questions on awareness? Most of you are pretty comfortable with the view by now, right? Okay, comfortable enough, because when you hear this text, it's all about this present abiding. There's nothing that we need to intellectually chew on. So I just want to make it easier for you, make it more comfortable for you. And I'll just say, remember the three ways of listening to the texts. I mentioned them the other day in case it benefits. Sometimes we can all be one of these three teapots, or maybe all three teapots. So when you listen to the teachings, sometimes there's the overflowing teapot, or you're kind of saying, I know already, and I have something better, and I'm not entertaining this. Teapot is kind of overflowing, not letting anything in. And then the second one is a teapot with the poison. So everything that you're hearing, you're kind of tainting it with something. I gave some examples of that earlier, how that can happen. And then the last teapot is the teapot with the hole in it. So things are being said, but maybe we're too distracted or something like that, and we cannot retain, or I would say access, relate to what the text is saying. So anyway, use those if they're helpful, up to you. We're all our own scientists here, and that's the wonderful part about the awareness practice, is that you get this beautiful tool, which is like a telescope or microscope. You now have this lens in which to see your own mind. Typically, we're absorbed in thoughts. It's a dimension that we get absorbed into, a contraction of effort and doing. So when you have aware of thoughts and you see, wow, the thoughts are really coming and going back to this awareness, this mind, and my mind is here, purely present within everything, then, well, now there's nothing. You're just resting in pure presence. I don't even know what to say about that. You know, my mind just went blank. Choom, gone. It's quite nice just to bathe in that. And then even the most hard-headed of us start to surrender into that. Yes, she posted the three teapots there. And so hopefully your teapot is willing to receive some of this. And basically it's like the body scan that we did earlier, because as you rest here in awareness, your whole body, all the muscles and nervous system, circulatory systems, organs, the breathing, it's all within pure presence already. But if you're distracted into the thinking mind, then um, you're contracted into another dimension, you see? Yeah, you're stuck in those thoughts. And so you're not really in the wholeness of your mind. Mhm. Yeah, and then the flow is coming from there. You see the speech coming, going. thoughts coming, going, all from this pure mind of yours. So we warm up to that. That's why we have the group and everything. We start to warm up to this, what we call awareness, just for the sake of access, like I mentioned so many times. And then you start to see all the stuff that's going on in your mind. It's all revealed to you instead of you imputating what's going on. So you're not intellectualizing like you're messing with a Rubik's Cube, sitting there intellectualizing everything, trying to figure out enlightenment. We don't need to do that. Put down the Rubik's Cube. And like I said before, we kind of end this civil war with ourselves. Why do I feel like this? I don't want to feel like this, etc., etc. There's a civil war going on. Awareness makes peace on both sides. All right, so that's my introduction. Aside from, wow, I really appreciate all these practitioners that are here today with me in the presence, making the group possible. To me, that's a wonderful use of our life. And then all of the people who tune into YouTube and connect to these teachings and connect to the Sangha. Much love to everybody. I appreciate you, and I want nothing but the most freedom in your mind, all right? These types of meditations are really good for that. And just always sending my best wishes, all right? So we'll start the reading here. Yes, I think we went through all of these already, Yeshi. The 12 Vajra laughters, or this is the commentary, yeah. So we went through the 12 Vajra laughters, and now the Longchen is commentating on those, right? From the heap jewels. All right, very good. Oh, we went further, so maybe past the commentary of those. All right, so we left off kind of in the middle there. Mm-hmm. So these are the 7 key statements of wonderment. Very nice. All right. So we read a few of them. Let's get back to where we left off. So, O Vajra of speech, awareness itself is non-composite. With this key point, I, Samantabhadra, have shown that, regarding the opportunity to perfect the accumulations, there is not the slightest difference between two people, one with faith who has performed immeasurable acts of virtue that is composite, and another who is continually engaged in taking life. So yes, this is the great metaphor, the great extreme, 2 extremes that they say are the same. And it sounds radical, and people may be slightly shocked when they hear it. And Longchen also said, when it comes down to ultimate truth, there isn't the slightest difference between a Buddha and a mass murderer. And this is just like in a dream. If you were dreaming last night and you dreamt of a Buddha and you dreamt of a mass murderer who was chasing the Buddha, well, both of those would be pure cognizance. Yes, there's the appearance of a Buddha and a mass murderer, but at the same time, it's worthwhile to us to understand and realize the pure essence of it, of the appearances. And this is known just like when the fist is released, like tension in your body, you're releasing into open awareness, you're releasing into pure presence. Well, we have a grip on the elements and our reality. We're very engaged in it. And so there's a grasping into phenomenon as well. And that also gets released. So all the senses, everything, sound grasping, sight grasping, smell grasping, taste grasping, all the graspings are then kind of released like that. Mhm. So, O Vajra of speech, awareness, timeless awareness, does not come or go. With this key point, I, Samantabhadra, have shown that, regarding their perception of ultimate reality, there is not the slightest difference between two people, one, a spiritual person who exhibits even various physical and verbal signs of having realized the nature of phenomenon, and the other, a person who has not trained their mind even for an instant in hearing and contemplating spiritual teachings. Yeah, so to summarize, um, it says that there's not the slightest difference between a Dharma practitioner with realization and someone who's never even heard the teachings. O Vajra of speech, the nature of phenomenon has no origin or cessation. With this key point, I, Samantabhadra, have shown that, regarding their access to avenues of realization, there is not the slightest difference between two people, one undergoing the agonies of heat or cold in a hell realm, and another enjoying the bliss of Buddhas. O Vajra of speech, awareness is unchanging. With this key point, I, Samantabhadra, have shown that, regarding realization of the way of abiding, there is not the slightest difference between two people, one, a spiritual person who has cut through conceptual elaborations, and another who believes that things have permanent identity. O Vajra of speech, Dharmakaya is present within you. With this key point, I, Samantabhadra, have shown that, regarding their attainment of the goal, there is not the slightest difference between two people. One who outwardly makes all kinds of offerings, praises, and prayers of supplication, and another who simply sits without engaging in any action. Vajra of speech. It is for these reasons that a person who applies these statements about the supreme and naturally occurring state will discover the indwelling confidence to apply them effortlessly, and thereby, in the inseparability of apparent phenomenon and the three kayas, awaken to Buddhahood. Freedom is shown to come about through realization of the ultimate meaning of ineffability. And it says the root text here, the root verses. Within the context of emptiness that is inherent in dreams and magical illusions, those who are unwise and immature are bound by fixation, but those who are conscious of the nature of these cannot be bound. Likewise, people who lack wisdom concerning ineffability are bound by fixation on identity, and so are caught up in samsara, while wise people who are immersed in genuine being, aware of thatness, and decisive in the very moment about ineffability, are free within the expanse, the nature of phenomenon in which there is no causality. Yeah, so maybe everybody, if you want to try to access this for a split second, imagine that you're in a simulation. This is all a simulation, your body, everything, virtual reality. Well, how would you feel about it then? Wouldn't you? Don't you notice your mind pulling out a little bit from its hooks, from its engagements when you do that? We may even get this arousal of the feeling of neglect. Well, if I don't hook into this, I'm neglecting what's going on. We get that way about politics and activism. If I don't have this on my mind, we get this way about compassion too. When there's some suffering going on, we feel it's our obligation to have it on our mind, and we hold it and we grasp it. But this is unnatural, okay? We can start to trust pure presence, trust the unhooking, trust the relief. You could still have your cake and eat it too, okay? Uh, you can know this is all simulation and still participate. And what if it was? What if this really was just a computer simulation? Maybe some high-tech way of fixing our minds. They plug you in and they create this whole reality for you, and they make you go through whole life just to fix you up a little bit, and then you wake up and you're half. No more anger. I'm better. I'm better, honey. Please don't send me here again. So anyway, but it could be. It's very high tech. And so with the awareness practice, you're safe in that case. With the emptiness and suchness, the great evenness, the great mind that's here, then you're safe. Simulation or no simulation. So anyway, I'll continue here to read the auto commentary on the root verses. So when the play of magic causes phantoms to emanate, the young whose judgment is undeveloped become attached to them. just saying, isn't that wonderful? Like a simulation, right? The difference between a simulation and not a simulation. You feel your mind grasping. And those of you who are familiar with awareness to a significant degree, well, then you notice on very subtle levels, even this grasping into the world of substance, the world of appearances and vibrations, sense world. We become subscribed to it. We hit the subscribe button, right? Uh, so yes, she's sharing something from the Matrix there. Thank you. Found that, huh? It says, I know the steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put in my mouth, the Matrix is telling my brain that it's juicy and delicious. After 9 years, you know what I realized? Ignorance is bliss. Yes. But the idea here, unlike the Matrix, is that with Dzogchen coming into your whole mind, you can still enjoy, tea, whatever it is. Now, I'm not going to go into eating meat and all that because it's a little sensitive, but you can still enjoy the senses. And this is something that's a little bit understated, especially in Buddhism. There's a lot of suppression going on. There's a lot of cutting off of the sense indulgence and sense pleasures. But I think at this point, we're mature enough to understand that overindulging is going to make us feel like crap in one way or another. But if we can manage to have a healthy alchemy, so to speak, a healthy balance, then it's fine. Yeah. All right, so yeah, we get attached to this, and by the way, I have to bring up the practice of the banana practice, and you can try this. Imagine yourself as a banana for a moment. If you laughed, then that's normal. If you feel lightened up, that's quite normal, because for a second you lost your whole identity construct. You lost all these ideas, all these holdings on to what you are and what you have to do and You were just a banana. Yes. So doesn't it feel good to be a banana? You could be like that all the time, nice and light. Mm. It's very appealing. Sorry, I had to do that. I'm contractually obligated to tell one dad joke a week at least. I have to fulfill my quota. All right. So, bananas and corn. The banana practice is very appealing. Yeah, probably like 6 out of 10. Not so good, but still on the chart. All right, so their minds are bound by thinking of them as truly existent, while their elders understand what is really the case and are not ensnared. I don't really like age distinctions so much, actually. So I would say the immature are caught up at thinking things as truly existent, and the practitioners who are matured are not ensnared, because there could be somebody young that comes along. I've seen this happen. I mean, the founder of Pal Yul was 16, 17. Make your Dorje. All right, and many other cases like that, actually. And then there are cases where um, older folks don't get it at all. Many Buddhist stories about that. It really is not age dependent. So similarly, though phenomena appear as they do, they cannot stand up to examination, for they are clearly apparent, but illusory forms of emptiness that manifest naturally. Yet people who fixate on identity are continually ensnared in samsara by thinking of them as truly existent. Yeah, remember, much of your conditioned self, that seventh egoic consciousness, if you're using the Abhidhamma stuff, the consciousness model that's also used in Dzogchen, um, this ego is built up a lot by the sense world, how much you own, how much you possess, what you look like, what you smell like, all of it. Okay. So that's why the sense world can be a huge complement to your conditioned existence, and that conditioned construct of the self. But anyway, this is basically exactly what I was saying with the banana practice. If you constantly fix on this identity of yours as truly existent, and we do pump up a lot of worries too. We worry about what people think a lot of times, and oh my goodness, you guys all know how deep this rabbit hole gets with identity constructs, and it just amounts to a very, very heavy anchor that sinks into the deep waters of samsara and keeps us keeps us there. So it says those immersed in genuine being, however, who are conscious of thatness itself, are beyond either bondage or release, and so are free in the expanse that is without characteristics. It is as the discourse of the rare and sublime meteor states. Nice, they're talking about rare and sublime meteors back then. All phenomenon are similar to the Sugata, those whose minds are undeveloped, who invest things with characteristics, are caught up in the phenomenon of their world, which are ineffable. If they looked, they would gain understanding. If they looked, they would gain realization through this total refinement. I'm not in favor of the word understanding or the word knowledge, and when we're talking about definitive truth. Just a FYI, I think it's better because understanding is inherent to conceptualizing, and knowledge, yeah, she's crossing it out. And then knowledge is inherent to conditioned self. You acquire knowledge when you look up that word knowledge. It's defined as an acquisition, and it's also, to me, you know, pretty obvious. It kind of dependently imputates a possessing of that knowledge. Yeah, I think realization is better there. So for those immersed in genuine being who realize that all phenomena manifest yet lack true existence, it is clearly evident that there is nothing that is not free within the expanse of awakened mind. This shows that what does not hold for those involved with cause and effect, with effort and achievement, is entirely valid for those immersed in genuine being. The natural freedom that underlies characteristics composed by the master Garb Dorje states, the fact that the nature of phenomenon is freedom and non-duality is perfectly plausible, but it is not conceivable in lower approaches. Wait a minute. The fact that the nature of phenomenon is freedom and non-duality is perfectly plausible. Uh-huh. I want to talk about something briefly. A lot of folks cannot understand until they recognize the nature of mind. They can't understand how you still have your own mind. All right. The conditioned mind is released. That construct is released. But when Buddha Shakyamuni, for example, or Garb Dorje, when they became enlightened, that didn't mean that they lost their mind into some great melting pot of minds. Yeah, this is important because that's a subtle nihilism. I mentioned that before, and it's very prevalent in the Dharma. People say you can't have your own mind because that's not emptiness. Well, your own mind is empty. That's what that means. And it's paradoxical. Do we speculate? Are we mingling our mind with a great God or divinity or supreme source? Because when you awaken, you realize the same awareness that I realized. And when you fully enlighten, now remember, I don't believe in even speculating when you're fully enlightened. I don't think the Buddhas did either. That's just something that kind of takes place, and others probably speculate that you're enlightened. But the main thing is that you awaken, and after you awaken, after you recognize the nature of mind, you will be free. That's part of the guarantee. And so, yes, when you're enlightened, though, um, are you like mingled with some great supreme source or not? We all sentient beings are in that source right now. Whatever that is ineffable. We don't need to speculate. But the fact is, you don't lose your mind, whether it's mingled into a supreme source. Well, a whirlpool in the ocean would be more into nihilism. Now we can think of it that way when we talk about the conditioned mind. Um, is a whirlpool. Let's say you're thinking your identity constructs, all that conditioning is a whirlpool, and then one day you say, "Wait a minute, I'm not a whirlpool. I'm this whole ocean." So now your mind is the whole ocean, but excuse me, is that mind mingled with something greater? For example, when you become enlightened, it's the same enlightenment that I have. So we're both recognizing some universal enlightenment here. Are we? Do you own that? Am I recognizing it only in my own little dimension, and you recognizing it in your own dimension? I don't think so. I think it's a great nexus, like Indra's net, one of the oldest metaphors. All the water droplets on the spider web, everything's reflecting each other. So I think it's like concentric in that way. It's overlapping in that way. We both recognize this supreme source. Our minds have always been a part of it. Even a mass murderer's mind is a part of it. We've never been outside of it. You see? And when you awaken to it, when you surrender, when you release the conditioned mind into it, somehow, paradoxically, miraculously, you still have your own mind. And this is where I think they talk about the union with God and things like that in the theistic traditions. Very interesting, right? So I'll just finish Garb Dorje's statements here to say, yeah, I'll start over. The fact that the nature of phenomenon is freedom and non-duality is perfectly plausible, but is not conceivable in lower approaches. Now I'm going to say again, when you tell somebody you still have your own mind, in lower approaches, they'll tell you you're asserting a higher self. You don't understand emptiness if you think you have your own mind. That's why Longchen constantly says in lower approaches, it's not going to make sense. So the ease with which a wild goat kid climbs a rock face is possible for it, but is not feasible for other creatures. Yeah, I suppose you've all seen those goats that stand on a little bitty rock on the edge of a great cliff. So freedom within the expanse of awareness in which nothing need be done is impossible with inferior spiritual approaches involving effort and achievement, but is easy for one immersed in genuine being on the path equal to space, on which nothing need be done. Yes, so if you're applying effort, and I've seen a lot of people who treat Dzogchen like a hotel room, they don't really spend enough time, so they never really release into effortlessness. I've seen many people ask me about practices. What practices should I do? I don't teach to do any practices. I don't teach to mix any practices into Dzogchen. I teach to recognize awareness, familiarize with awareness, and then once you familiarize with awareness, then you can go do all the practices you want. You can actually go climb trees and play in the river and do whatever you want. Everything's a practice then. So anyway, it says here explicitly something that should clear up a great misconception. It says timelessly awakened awareness is non-referential. Very important right there. If you have a reference point, everybody, that's the conditioned self that is talked about in all these traditions. That's the small you. That's the baby you that needs to kind of mature, crack out of the eggshells of our constructs. It's non-referential, right? That means look back at the one who's thinking. Look at the one who's watching thoughts. Um, the one who's feeling sad. The one who's feeling happy. Right? All these things. Awareness inherits and subsumes and consumes um, the subject action object trichotomy. The three spheres of conception are within awareness. And so that's how the conditioned self can exhaust in a state of nirvana. And that's how you can be free. So it cannot possibly wander in samsara, yet is the innate condition of all possible conditioned states. The inferior mind, which believes the perceiver to be real, is freed in space, freed within the expanse that has no basis. The unique sphere, without edges or corners, cannot possibly manifest dualistically, yet is the innate condition of all possible conditioned states. The confused mind, which reifies phenomenon as being identical or different, is freed in oneness, freed within the expanse of the nature of phenomena. The nature of phenomenon is awareness. Remember, everybody, if I'm sitting here thinking of stuff, if I'm thinking of the bell and how the bell makes sounds, and then I stop thinking, that thought about the bell came, stayed, and left within my awareness. All right? So everything is like that. Um, all sights, all sounds, all feelings, all tastes, all smells, everything just within awareness like that. Mhm. So the confused mind, which reifies phenomenon as being identical or different, is freed in oneness, freed within the expanse of the nature of phenomenon. Naturally occurring timeless awareness, entailing no causes or conditions, cannot possibly arise as the five poisons, yet is the innate condition of all possible conditioned states. Yeah, just like a dream, cognition is the essence of the whole dream, whether it's a nightmare or heaven. Both of those are nothing but cognition. So, hindrances to enlightenment, which keep one on the course of samsara, are freed in a way that occurs naturally, freed within the expanse of timeless awareness. Okay, we can pause there. Thank you, Yeshi, so much, and thank you to everybody here who made this possible, and those on YouTube who are listening to these text explorations and exploring your own mind science. I appreciate you so much. Without you, I couldn't do this myself. So this is great. And are there any comments, questions, sharing before we close up? Everybody's okay, right? Very nice. All right. Thank you. And so we'll end here with a moment just to dedicate any merit, any good that we've created through this session to those in our presence that are suffering. We dedicate all that merit to them. Oh, yeah. Well, deep bow to you, my friends. Please have a beautiful day, okay? Take care.